Thank you for tuning into the Generational Gauntlet Top 5 Faves. This is the podcast where we give you our top 5 on a topic with a generational twist to it. My name is Matt Lambert, and I'm the host of this podcast. Each week, I bring in a guest who's from a different generation than me to discuss or debate our top 5 on a selected topic. This is the first one for 2026, so Happy New Year to everyone listening. And to kick off this new year, I get to bring in one of my closest friends, Adam Dillon. Adam is a Gen Xer. We were previously neighbors for 5 years. He's a Spartan, and we probably disagree on everything. So, Adam, welcome in. Can you think of anything we actually agree on?
Let's see here. We're both afraid of my wife, and probably not much more.
I was going to say that one of the only things we probably agree on is that both of us married up and that we both are blessed with some cool kids at our house. But I am terrified of your wife. And if she's listening, I'm sorry to say that out loud. Adam, you're a big superhero guy, right?
Correct.
All right. So I am as well. And that's why when I was thinking of a topic for the two of us, I thought this one would be good for us to chat about today. So, for anybody listening, if you're not familiar with how these episodes work, we each have put a list together today. Our topic is the top 5 favorite superheroes of all time. Adam and I haven't seen each other's lists. We don't know each other's lists, though I do suspect on one of his that I'll be surprised if it's not his number one. But outside of that, I'm at a complete loss. So, with that in mind, we're going to get into our lists. Adam, I'm going to hand it over to you. Who is your number 5 superhero all time?
Well, first, I'd like to say that I am on to you. You come on here and you let the guest go first, so you always get the last word. I'm assuming that's because you don't get the last word in at home very often.
That is 100% correct.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I will start with my number 5 will be Superman. He was originally created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. He first appeared in issue 1 of Action Comics back in 1938. Everyone has seen the cover of that initial comic with him lifting the car over his head. His origins are sort of Greek mythology and even biblical. He was sent from a dying planet as the last son of Krypton, landed on Earth, and was raised by farmers in the Midwest, which they instilled in him all the things they thought were good about America and Americans. I honestly think he's more human than most people on Earth, even though he is an alien.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm tracking. I like that one. I'll be honest, as I was working on my list, Superman was not on the radar, but that's a really good one out of the gates.
Well, he's DC. I was always more of a Marvel kid, but I think he's one on there that most people would see, and the logo would trigger a lot of people's memory.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my number 5, I'm actually going to be curious if you even know who it is. My number 5 is Captain Planet. Do you know Captain Planet?
I do. I remember the cartoons from, I'm guessing, the mid to late 90s.
Uh-huh. You're spot on. I'm going back to my childhood here. So you mentioned it. It's the 90s. Captain Planet was in Captain Planet and the Planeteers, and the New Adventures of Captain Planet. Those were from 90 to 92 and then 93 to 96, respectively. When the Planeteers couldn't solve the problems they were dealing with, they put all their rings together, and then Captain Planet, our Earth-conscious, environmentally friendly, flying superhero, came to save the day. And do I remember any of the episodes of the show? Absolutely not. I remember watching it at a babysitter's house growing up, and as I was prepping our list for tonight, I showed Madison and Nora one of the clips from the show. I think it was like the theme song. And they groaned out loud and talked about how stupid it was. And that secured it for me that this needed to be number 5 on my list. I had a couple of his toys growing up. I know this one's probably out of left field for a lot of people listening, but Captain Planet is my number 5. Adam, I'll kick it back to you. Who's your number 4 superhero?
Number 4, I have Iron Man.
Ooh, that's a good one.
He was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. doing some research. His first appearance was in Tales of Suspense 39 back in 62. He was the superhero persona of Tony Stark, a businessman and engineer, ran Stark Industries. He inherited that from his father. They were killed in a car crash, which some of that was in the movie. He was one of the most brilliant people in the Marvel Universe, also super wealthy. But the real reason he's on there for me was his first movie redefined the comic book movie
Mm.
genre. And without RDJ and Jon Favreau, I don't think the Marvel Universe would be anything near it turned out to be.
No, that's a great point. I'm not a huge superhero fan from, like, back in the day. I watched them as a kid, but I think I was late to watching the MCU. I think you were actually one of the people that encouraged me to check it out, and I did, and I remember watching Iron Man and being like, "Okay, this isn't what I thought it was gonna be, and I'm locked in for this." Uh, I will tell you, he's not in my top 5, but he was close on the list. Like, he was right on the cut for that top 5 for me. Uh, my number 4 is Hancock. Have you seen the 2008 film with Will Smith, Hancock?
Yes, and there was talks of doing a sequel at some point,
Mhm.
and he's in the universe with somebody else, and that other person is escaping me right now. But there's another comic tie-in with him and Charlize Theron in that one.
See, and I'm not even familiar with, like, the origins outside of the movie. I just love the movie itself. One of the things for me that I really appreciated was he doesn't, if you've seen the film, he doesn't remember that he's a superhero or his backstory. So it's him going from this anti hero who can't control his power or his drinking problems. And in the beginning of the movie, he's like the Lotto lyric, rip me out the plastic, I be acting brand new. But by the end, he's this lovable hero. He's somebody who's willing to put himself or put others above himself by the end of the film. You mentioned Superman as your number 5. He kind of gives me Superman vibes. He can fly. He has superhuman strength. Bullets don't pierce his body. But I think they did a good job of humanizing him, making him somebody who you felt for. There was a lot of empathy for what he was going through. And you mentioned the sequel. As I was doing my research, I was hoping they were going to say it's coming out soon. I've been bummed that they didn't roll a sequel out to this movie. So, for all those reasons, Hancock is my number 4. Fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely need to check it out. Adam, I'll kick it back to you for your number 3.
For 3, I had to put Captain America on here. Joe Simon and another Jack Kirby. His first appearance was Captain America Comics in 1940. I'm sure most people have seen the movie and realize he was a scrawny kid from New York that wanted to join the war to fight fascism when Hitler started moving across Europe, but no one thought that he could do it. And there was a professor that had the super soldier serum that transformed him into Captain America, gave him peak human strength, speed, and agility, and a beacon on the battlefield. He's always been sort of looked at as a man out of touch because at some point during his story he was frozen and they found him, but he's always been like out of time because he remembers all the things from the 40s and 50s even
Mhm.
though it's current day. And again, like with Superman, just the shield and the cowl that he wears, it just brings back memories for people.
Totally agree. Chris Evans' portrayal of him in the MCU has been fantastic. Definitely I think a fan favorite for everybody. My number 3, I'm going a totally different route. And my number 3 is Mr. Incredible. When I started making this list, I did not expect to choose an animated uh, children's film and a superhero from that movie. If you haven't seen the movies The Incredibles or The Incredible 2s, you're missing out. I think they're good family films. I'm not personally a huge animated film guy, but I was able to enjoy both watching them with my daughter. What I love about Mr. Incredible, though, is you have this washed up, tired superhero who went from saving the world to now he's a family man. He's working this kind of dead end job and he's drowning in misery. And he's not living up to his full potential anymore. He's put on some lbs, he's got a bad back. Adam and I could probably both attest to that. As we get a little bit older, our back's not feeling the best. And I think in that first movie, he gets his groove back at some point, and in the process reconnects with his family. I didn't put him at number 3 because of the superhuman strength. I put him at number 3 because I think a lot of us dads out there, we still got that dog in us. It might be caged up, it might be locked up, but sometimes we just got to let that dog out. Hit the gym, hit the trails, hit a heavy bag, carry a bucket full of rocks while you're running through the neighborhood, whatever that is. Adam, that's for you. Get after it. And that's what Mr. Incredible does in the movie, and it makes him a better dad and a better husband. So if you're like me, maybe you're not exactly where you want to be fitness wise or somewhere else in your life at that moment, heed the advice of Mr. Incredible and go get it done. Adam, I'll kick it back to you for your number 2.
Well, going back to your bucket of rocks, it was a drywall bucket full of rocks, so not just a little sand bucket. It was an honest to goodness grown man bucket full of rock.
And this was when you were training for a Spartan, right?
Correct. So I could be the dominant male of the neighborhood.
For context, Adam has done Spartans. We lived across the street from each other for 5 years, and it would be like late at night, and he's just out there getting it. And I had to go work out because he would fire me up because I felt lazy. So thank you, Adam, for making me push myself more than I probably should have.
Well, speaking of pushing oneself, my number 2 would be Batman, the Caped Crusader. He was created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. He debuted in Detective Comics back in 1939. Bruce Wayne was powerless to prevent his parents getting murdered and vowed to fight crime with the rest of his life. He inherited the Wayne fortune, so he had all the cool costumes, cars, and planes, and all these gadgets. But he trained himself to be one of the greatest heroes that I've ever read or seen on film. It was actually the Michael Keaton Batman movie was the first comic book movie I saw in theaters. I'm not sure if it was a midnight showing because I was a little young at that point, but my stepdad worked at a movie store and he scored us some tickets and we all went and watched it. And Batman has hands down the greatest supervillain in his rogue gallery at being the Joker.
Totally agree with that. I have a lot more comments I would make, but Batman might be on my list as well here in a bit. So I might be revealing my number 1. My number 2 is Thor. And when I started watching the MCU, I fell in love with the character of Thor. I mentioned it earlier. I didn't read comic books growing up. My video games were more the style of either first person shooters or sports related. However, when I started watching the MCU and saw the Avengers films, I was completely smitten with the idea and the character of Thor. In the MCU, I think he's the funniest character. Oftentimes it's because it's not intentional. He doesn't understand what's happening on Earth. I thought there was a lot of good humor in the first Thor movie where, he's showing up at the pet store trying to commandeer a horse for battle. And I thought Thor Ragnarok was one of the funniest superhero movies I've ever seen. Like a buddy cop style with him and the Hulk. Obviously, he's one of the strongest superheroes. And I think Chris Hemsworth does an amazing job of getting jacked to play him. However, his redemption arc throughout the movies has been phenomenal. In terms of throwing a lot of loss and trauma at one person, they did that and then some with Thor, but he just keeps coming back. And I admittedly have not went and watched a superhero movie recently in theaters. The last one I saw in theaters was actually the most recent Thor movie, the Love and Thunder. I've watched some of the other ones on Disney Plus, haven't made it to the theater, but if they released a Thor movie that was going to be in theaters tomorrow, I would be there front row. That's how much I like that character. So that's my number 2. Adam, I'm going to kick it to you for your number 1. I have a strong feeling of who it is, but if it's not, I'm going to be really shocked.
Before I reveal my number 1, which anyone who's met me for more than 5 minutes can probably figure that one out. If you like Marvel movies for their humor, you need to watch the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
I've seen those. Yeah.
Okay. Those are very good. And you may have been getting a tingling sensation about who my number 1 was going to be. It's Spider-Man. Spider-Man was created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. He first appeared in Amazing Fantasy 15 back in 1962. I could relate with Spider-Man as a nerdy kid growing up. Now, I wasn't as brilliant as Peter Parker was, but most heroes were billionaire playboys living in skyscrapers or gods like Thor that you mentioned, aliens, whatever the case may be. But Peter Parker was a unpopular kid with regular problems. When he got bit by a radioactive spider, he could physically beat up the entire football team or anyone that was picking on him and bullying him, but he couldn't reveal who he was. Um, he dealt with loss. He lost his parents when he was young. His aunt and uncle ended up raising him. And of all the things that can and have changed in comic books, the one thing that I have never seen change is that Uncle Ben is dead. They've never brought him back. They've never changed his story, because him dying and saying to Peter that with great power there must also come great responsibility, that line stuck, even though everybody shortens it. That's the way it was actually written in the comics. Um, and in the newer Spider-Man series, the animated movies, which I beg everyone to go watch, those are by far phenomenal movies. There's a phrase in the first one where they say that anyone can wear the mask, and that's why Spider-Man can be loved by everyone. And I heard you drop a line earlier, so I will drop one by Fife Dog from Tribe Called Quest. I will paraphrase. You can be white, black, brown, yellow, Puerto Rican, or Haitian. It did not matter. Anyone could have been behind that mask because his entire body was covered. You had no idea who was fighting crime. And anyone could don the mask and protect people.
I like that. Um, so for anybody listening, I can see Adam on camera right now, and I'm really interested to see his reaction when I make the following comments. So, hot take, Adam. I think that both Hamilton and Spider Man are vastly overrated. And I'm going to tell you why. So, I think
My phone broke up. I couldn't hear that.
Spider Man is overrated. I think he picks bad friends. His powers aren't that cool. I mean, an iguana can climb on the side of the building, and his suit's kind of lame. So I don't think Spider Man's that great of a superhero.
Well, to quote the Big Lebowski, that's like your opinion, man.
So I really don't feel this way. I knew this was going to be your number one, and I wrote down, if Adam lists this as his number one, give him a hard time. So,
Well, I mean, I'm a I won't use okay, I'll use clean language. I am a grown man. I have 3 Spider-Man wallets. I have a Spider-Man belt. When I was in high school, being a comic book nerd was a terrible idea. Kids today have no idea because these movies are massive and anybody can be a fan of these movies and comic books in general. But I remember before I could drive, I would ride my bike to the comic book shop down by Marshall, every Wednesday when the new release would drop. And we'd go through there like it was an old record store, just digging through comics to buy stuff. And I'll go into more of that after you're finished because I'm sure we'll have a little closing up thing. But
well,
go ahead and tell me who your number one is so I can tell you that you're close, but not right.
Before I tell you my number one, I am curious. So the Spider-Man actors, you've got Maguire, Garfield, and Holland. How do you rank them? Who's the best to the worst?
See, Toby was the first. So he's like your first love. There's a pull that he has with me. And when I saw him in the last one as a Spider-Man about my age complaining about his back hurting, it hit different. But Andrew Garfield had the snarky wisecrack, sort of mouthy Spider-Man that I loved the most.
Okay.
But the kid, he's got it. I think he's probably the best of the 3. I do wish that Garfield got to wrap up his storyline, which there are talks out there that they're going to. But it's weird that the best Spider-Man from Queens is a kid from overseas. Of course,
It,
two of them have been from overseas, so there's that.
well, it's funny that you say that because if I had to rank them, I would go Holland first, Maguire second, and then Garfield would be last for me. Um,
Well, he only got the two movies,
yeah,
but
I didn't even watch Garfield's movies, if I'm honest. I remember seeing the originals. I've watched with Tom Holland's Spider Man. So when Garfield appeared in that movie, I was just kind of like, it wasn't a big deal for me on that one.
well, now his having Gwen Stacy in his movies and them mimicking the death direct from the
Hmm.
comics, I will not be afraid to tell people, all these people that have no idea who I am, I did tear up in that movie because I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming, and it hurt uh, to see a fictional death on the movie screen. But oh well.
I can respect it. Hey, movies are allowed to move us. It's all good. I, in terms of my number one, originally I was gonna say my wife was my favorite superhero, but Adam would never let me live that down, so I went a different route.
I'll
My
come
number
back to that.
my number one is Batman. It was in your list as well. What I love about Batman is it's just a wealthy dude who's willing to go out and fight crime. And it's like if Mark Zuckerberg was like, you know what? I'm going to clean up a rough city because I got money to buy all this fancy equipment and I'll just go fight people hand to hand. And granted, Zuckerberg is now training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So we may need to stay tuned. We might be watching his origin story right now. But when I was a kid, I watched Batman's cartoons growing up. My family didn't get into a lot of superhero movies, but I do remember watching 1992's Batman Returns with the Penguin. I remember watching 1997's Batman and Robin with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze and George Clooney as Batman. And I think the fact that we've had so many A-list actors play Batman that it just shows the character's iconic. You've got Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson, and in my eyes, the Batman GOAT, Christian Bale. Adam, who's your favorite actor that played Batman?
Again, Keaton was the Batman I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Christian Bale has probably done it the best. I don't understand the voice he has to use, but I I, I enjoyed the Clooney movies, but the costume with
Mm-hmm.
the bat nipples, I don't understand why it had to be part of it. Uh, but Val Kilmer did a very good job too. The Pattinson Batman, I did not watch. I watched that movie late at night,
Mm-hmm.
and I may have siested in the middle of it, so I may have to give it another go. But I understand why people would put him number one. I really do.
That's who's number one for me. My favorite superhero trilogy movie is the Dark Knight trilogy. I think that Christopher Nolan did a fantastic job with that. I've watched them numerous times. You mentioned Batman having the best villain with the Joker. I think Heath Ledger is the best Joker we've seen.
Hands
Um,
down.
yeah, absolutely, just phenomenal performance. I love Anne Hathaway as an actress, so her as Catwoman was cool. I'm a big Tom Hardy fan, so him as Bane, and then you put in one of my favorite actors of all time, Morgan Freeman. So there's so many great actors and actresses for me that it just elevates it. I think that the fight scenes are epic. The musical score from Zimmer is amazing. I actually work out to it sometimes. I realize that's lame, but I'll put on the Dark Knight theme song and do some lifting weights to it. So not too proud to admit that. But I think the fact that Batman's just a simple dude, I mean, albeit rich, battling a collection of iconic villains, and the character's so good that we keep getting reboots every 5 years or so. That's what makes it number one for me. Now,
Well,
Adam,
I will pad your Batman stats
okay.
here with something I skimmed over. It was about him being able to beat any foe given enough prep time. Uh,
Okay.
which that's true. I think he could do that, even though he's just a normal person. Which brings me back to what I was getting ready to say with you putting your wife at number one. You can tell from our lists that we went completely different directions. I had two separate lists for this top five
Okay.
because you said superhero. To me, I had Iron Man and Batman on there when technically they're not super powered.
Okay.
They're normal people that just happen to be filthy rich and could afford everything. So I almost had Wonder Woman and Wolverine on my list instead of those two because they are actually superheroes.
That's fair.
And
That's fair.
and I'm also a big fan of Deadpool because I like the idea of a superhero with a foul mouth con- and breaking the fourth wall. I always loved. He even did it in the comics when he would turn to me as a reader and say something to me, and I will never forget that early on in Deadpool, someone asked him what he looked like without his mask, and he said a cross between Ryan Reynolds and a pug, I think it was. Which, with Ryan plays him perfectly
Yeah.
on the screen.
Now, it sounded like you had some other comments about my list. You may have hit those just now, but I was going to
Well,
ask you,
no,
what
yeah, I
beef
just
do you
wanted
have?
to, before you copped out and put your wife at number one, because then we could go back and start putting our dads and whatever. But I will give my mom a shout out on this.
Okay.
She is who introduced me to comics when she first moved into town uh, after high school and whatnot. She started reading comics, and she got into ones that I didn't really get into all that much. But she had a vast collection of Spider-Man that I was able to get into before I was able to ride my bike to the comic shop.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of older comics. They're not in the greatest of shape, but I was able to read the stories because of her.
Yeah. And you've passed that down to your kid as well, right?
Correct. It's harder to get him to read comics as much, but he does love the superhero movies and shows. And his actual favorite comic character is not my Spider Man, but it's Miles Morales,
Okay.
Spider Man. And, he's younger, hip, but he listens to similar music that my kid does. But again, the animated Spider Man ones, they're so unbelievably done.
Yeah. No, I agree. You recommended that. Most recommendations you have given me outside of Hamilton, I've listened to and I've enjoyed them. So I probably need to go back to Hamilton because that's like the one that I was like, whatever.
Well, you're a president nerd and you like hip hop. It's the blending of those two, and you gushed over Lin Manuel Miranda and Moana, and I don't understand why you kids won't listen to your elders. You again, you have to get past the first two songs, and I'm not going to tell you to sit down and do it all at one time because it's like 3 hours long. It's a bit much, but give it three songs and then watch the first half. And then, you know, my wife absolutely loves it. And we watched it the first half one night and she listened to the soundtrack going to work the next day to finish it out. So
The fact that you said you kids and listen to your elders, you've never sounded older to me than
I did
just
that
in
on
that moment.
purpose. Yeah.
It's like you're yelling for me to get off your lawn. I do have a question for you
All
related to
right.
superhero movies. And I am curious, do you also think that superhero movies have lost their momentum in the theater over the last
Uh,
few years?
I do. Um, they've, I think they've been oversaturated. They've done a little bit too much, but I did hear I know this is we're in January now. I don't know if the official trailer's out by now, but I know there's been leaks for the new Spider-Man Brand New Day. I actually was scrolling through the going down a dark wormhole uh before we got on here and I didn't watch it, but I heard two or three different people talking about it and they were so excited about how it might be bringing back the great Marvel movies.
Okay.
So I'm holding out hope for it.
I'm the same as you. I think that we've had too many movies. I pulled up some data before we got on here this evening, and if you look at stats on superhero movies, Endgame earned $2.8 billion at the box office. The closest superhero movie since that time was Spider-Man No Way Home that earned 1.9 billion. So we're talking a $900 million difference. Uh, for me, I feel like we had such a good villain with Thanos in those movies that Marvel is struggling to come up with somebody that they can put across multiple films that gives them that buy-in. There were times where I almost rooted for Thanos, where I was like, "Is he the bad guy? I don't know."
Well,
For
that was
so,
also the culmination of the entire first or second phase, however they broke that
mhm,
up. And then right around that times when they started inundating Disney Plus with all the Marvel shows,
yeah.
which some of those were good, some were really good, and some of the earlier ones, like the original Daredevil, was outstanding. And the Punisher, I think anybody should watch. Um,
Are you talking about the one with John Bernthal?
yes, I
Yeah.
think it was only a season or two, but he was in the
Mhm.
original Daredevil as well. I did watch the new Daredevil, Born Again, Rise Again, whatever it was called. It didn't catch me as much, even though I loved the Wilson Fisk character. Um, I'm guessing I may have just not been in the right mood to be watching it, just watching it late at night after a long day. Um, I did not get into the Luke Cage one that much,
Mhm.
and was the they had the whole team up with him and Iron Fist and Jessica Jones all on there. Those didn't interest me as much, but the She-Hulk wasn't terrible.
Yeah, that one was okay. I honestly, I like the Hawkeye one they ran around the holidays a few years back.
It was good, and it had uh, what's her name, Florence Pugh
Mhm.
playing Black Widow's little sister. She was really good in that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was a good one, and I've gotten Nora into all the movies, and she liked Hawkeye, and that was, like, probably her favorite show of all the ones on Disney Plus, was when that one rolled out. But Adam, I'll ask you, any final or closing thoughts you have on our lists or on this superhero discussion today?
No, I was actually glad that we didn't have the same five in just different orders.
Mhm.
You went a little broader than I did on mine, but
I
I
did.
guess we can disagree about Spidey. But it sounds like we both agreed that you're going to watch Hamilton.
I'll put it on my list for the holidays.
Okay.
I got some time at home, so I guess I'll check it out.
All right.
Well, Adam, I appreciate you jumping on here with me for an episode this evening. I also appreciate all of you all that are listening. Please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and let someone know to check this podcast out. I want this podcast to cover topics that interest you. If you have a top 5 list you want us to rank, I take suggestions at generationalfave5 at gmail.com. That's generational, FAVE, the number 5 at gmail.com. Thank you all for tuning in.